Well, it was kind of a fun weekend here in the Eastern Sierra, unless I guess you were a fish, of course. Lots of snow at Mammoth Mountain, and the weather, well, that made for some interesting fishing also. Here's some video from Mammoth Mountain reporting 28 to 40 inches of new snow during the hours-long storm Friday and Saturday. It was dumping, and the much-needed and always appreciated precipitation should give Mammoth Mountain good coverage through its scheduled closing day of Memorial Day. It was also the general trout opener in the Eastern Sierra, and as always, reports of fishing success varied from angler to angler and body of water to body of water. Taking a look at some of the pictures of some fish caught at Crowley Lake. Oh, those are some beauties. Heard some people getting their limits before noon, and some nice sized fish haul out of Crowley this weekend. And hey, here's a cute photo of Laurel McElroy showing off this nice fish. Very cool. Always great to see people doing some catching during the fishing opener. And the California Department of Fish and Wildlife held an angler and hunter checkpoint again this year. That took place today south of Bishop. Officers stopped vehicles on Highway 395 and asked if they'd been fishing or hunting. Those that had were asked to show their catches to officers. California Fish and Wildlife Public Information Officer Andrew Huan talked with Sierra Wave Media about the checkpoint.
Well, the checkpoint is really the most efficient way to look for poachers and look for people with over limits. We have the wardens here anyway. They're here for the detail for the trout opener, so this is a really good use of resources. Right, we had more than a dozen wardens here. We were from Bridgeport to southern Inyo County. Looks like we were writing about 60 citations and about that many warnings. So we were very active, and again, they're here anyway, so we may as well put them to work. We've cited a number. We've had 6 over limits so far, and it's 11:30. We're going to be here till 4 o'clock, so we'll probably get at least that many. Then a couple other little nitnoid things, a couple no licenses, but it's a really effective way to do it. A lot of animosity leading up to it, but you know, the people who complain the most have the most to complain the most about. So, we got a lot of questions of, why are you doing this, on our busiest day? And we're doing it because it's the busiest day. And one thing I think it's important is that we're not here to hassle people. We're here to protect Inyo and Mono County's resources. These are your fish. We found one guy with 26 fish. You're only allowed 10 in possession over 2 days. So those are your fish. So he deserves a ticket. He got a ticket, and it's going to be a couple $1,000s for him. Well, the base fine is about $500. And then the Inyo County and Mono County judges are very strict. It runs about $100 a fish over the limit, plus the 500. So, well, wardens are overall really nice guys. I know when you're getting a ticket, it doesn't seem like it, but they are. It's a beautiful day. I mean, it could have been Saturday where it was 40 degrees and howling. Comes and goes. They're really busy right this very second. There's only half a dozen cars here. But there'll be 20 cars and boats here sometimes, and they're working pretty hard. But they can have a minute to have a break for sure. It's a really cost-effective. I know I saw a number of comments on your website about how much does this cost. Really, the cost is about $1,000 for gas. They're getting paid anyway. We're all here to work anyway. The extra fuel to get them up here, so it really doesn't cost the taxpayer anything, and we get a lot of bang for the buck.
Very cool. Andrew, thank you very much.
All right, Bob,
Appreciate
no problem. Happy to help.
Well, we thank Andrew Huan for that, and we will note that all seemed to go very smoothly through that checkpoint. Well, Bennett Kessler filed this report. Mono County lost another employee termination case. Judge Stan Eller has issued a decision in the case of Dick Lumen, former road department mechanic. Judge Eller ordered the County Personnel Appeals Board decision to uphold Lumen's termination vacated. He ordered Mono County to reinstate Lumen with all pay, benefits, seniority, and more. Now, Judge Eller's order also provides Lumen with a new penalty hearing that would result in something less than termination. Now, Lumen was originally accused by the county of being in a physical fight with his road department supervisor. The appeals board found instead that he had made threatening statements to that man, Brett McCurry. They upheld his termination. Judge Eller did not. The judge's order says that Lumen is due back is due back pay from the time of his termination in December 2011 until his reinstatement. The order says if a penalty is imposed on Lumen for his statements made to McCurry, the amount should be deducted from his back pay. Now, Lumen will also get interest on the money owed to him at the, quote, full legal rate, end quote. The judge also ordered that the county remove all documentation relating to the disciplinary action of termination and, quote, refrain from using this information in any way adverse to Lumen in his future employment with Mono County, end quote. Now, the judge's decision also points out that Dick Lumen had worked for Mono County for many years with no prior history of any discipline and was characterized as responsible, capable, and trustworthy. He was promoted to the highest level in his job classification. The order says, quote, there is absolutely no history of violence in the workplace exhibited by, end quote, Mr. Lumen. Now, the judge finds that Lumen's threatening statement was particular to an argument taking place with Mr. McCurry and was an isolated incident. The order also notes that Lumen, quote, got the worst of it as he suffered a cracked rib and a hernia requiring surgery, end quote. Attorney Katie Blomo, who represented Lumen, had also alleged that 2 Personnel Appeals Board members were biased. She claimed that Ralph Obenberger was biased because his office had investigated the altercation involving Lumen, and that Ralph Good was biased because someone close to him was being investigated by the Sheriff's Department. The judge did not find that the hearing officers were biased. The judge also found that the Appeals Board decision was not, quote, arbitrary and capricious, end quote, just erroneous. So no attorney's fees were awarded. Now, the judge's conclusion says, quote, the court determines that the Personnel Appeal Board's findings that Lumen made a threat of violence and provided misleading statements is supported by the weight of the evidence. However, the decision says the most extreme form of penalty, termination of employment, was grossly excessive, end quote, in view of the law. Well, Bennett Kessler also filed the following 2 stories. The Inyo-Los Angeles water agreement was based on what amounts to a 1-to-1 vote over objections. Inyo gets 1 vote and LA gets 1 vote. That means LA can hang up Inyo's concerns for a long time. Take the Black Rock area north of Independence, known as Black Rock 94. Now, Inyo began to see plant loss there before 1991 and on to the present. For over 23 years, Inyo suspected DWP's groundwater pumping killed off plants there. Now, finally, in 2011, Inyo presented a report to the technical group of staff members from Inyo and LA. Now, that report alleged a measurable vegetation loss from groundwater pumping and reduced surface water diversions. The issue remains unresolved. The 2 sides will continue to talk about Black Rock 94 when the standing committee meets Tuesday at 11 a.m. at the Inyo Supervisors Boardroom. Now, here's where it stands. Inyo and LA agree that a measurable change in plant life has taken place in Black Rock 94. Inyo says it's LA's groundwater pumping and water diversions that have killed the plants. DWP says plants died not because of their groundwater pumps, but because of climate cycles, including precipitation runoff and water spreading. DWP also says the plant die-off is, quote, not significant, end quote. Now, at Tuesday's standing committee meeting, the 2 sides will consider a resolution of the issues and a request for more time to submit reports to the arbitration panel. On another issue, the agenda includes the Lower Owens River Project seasonal habit flows. That meeting starts at 11 a.m. in the Independent Supervisors Boardroom. Also, LADWP has issued its annual operations plan, which includes groundwater pumping. Now, in a letter to Inyo Water Director Bob Harrington, DWP Aqueduct Manager Jim Yanata says DWP plans to pump between 36,920 and 47,930 acre feet in the first 6 months of the 2014-2015 runoff year. Yanata says, quote, as in past years, the majority of groundwater pumping is planned for the first 6 months of the year, end quote. Yanata says that while LADWP has not yet developed a specific groundwater pumping plan for the second 6 months of the runoff year, quote, total groundwater pumping during the year is anticipated to be in the 65,000 acre feet range, end quote. DWP's operations plan summary says that the forecast for eastern Sierra runoff for the Owens River Basin is 50% of normal. DWP says in the case of 2 consecutive dry years with a forecasted runoff below 75%, DWP must prepare 2 6-month operations plans. DWP will respond to DWP's plans, and then the technical group of both sides will discuss any differences. And you can see more on both of those stories on our website, sierrawave.net. Also getting information that the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service has announced it is postponing public hearings on proposals to protect the bi-state distinct population segment of greater sage-grouse along the California-Nevada border under the Endangered Species Act. The hearings were scheduled for this week, April 29th in Minden and April 30th in Bishop, and those will be rescheduled for the same locations. Now on April 8th, the service announced a 60-day extension of the comment period on the proposals, which include listing the bird as a threatened species, designating approximately 1.86 million acres of critical habitat for the species, and a special rule that would provide increased flexibility for land management practices that are intended to benefit the sage-grouse. The extended comment period closes June 9th. Now, a copy of the proposed rules published on October 28th, 2013, and other information about the bi-state or greater sage-grouse are available at regulations.gov or through the Nevada Fish and Wildlife Office, and that phone number is 775-861-6300. We'll be back with more news.